I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mindy, can I ask you to call the roll for us this evening, please?
Here. Here.
Mr. Nardella.
He's here.
Mr. Berthel.
Here.
Mr. Vazana.
Here.
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 Here. Here. Thank you very much, Mindy. Appreciate that. I'd like to move on to item D, recognition this evening. I have the privilege and honor of doing our first recognition for this evening. Dr. McDowell, would you join me at the rather compact area around the podium up there? We begin this evening with a celebration and recognition of Dr. Thomas Y. McDowell's time in Watertown as our interim superintendent. The Board of Education wishes to mark the occasion of Dr. Thomas Y. McDowell's last regular Board of Education meeting as interim superintendent with a time of recognition and deep appreciation for his leadership of our district over the past year. Dr. McDowell has excelled in all areas of his superintendency during his, frankly, all too brief time in our district, and he leaves a district that is better in every way. His many achievements include bringing the district into state compliance with a new comprehensive policy manual, leading his administrative team in assuring the district's Common Core, SEED, and SBAC initiatives were launched successfully, addressing numerous operational and administrative matters to increase the district's efficiency and effectiveness, leading the effort to assure non-residents are removed from the school district, and most importantly, being a powerful advocate for our children and the hundreds of dedicated employees who work to deliver excellence in our classrooms and throughout every department in our district every day. Dr. McDowell, Tim, to all of us, you will be missed, and your work will be long remembered and appreciated by this Board of Education and by boards in this entire district for years to come. We wish you every happiness as you leave us. We know that we will always be grateful for you, for your service to the children of Watertown. You, during your interview process, Dr. McDowell told us, I regard myself not as your interim superintendent, but as your superintendent for the interim. And boy, did he mean that. He made a lasting difference in this district. He's changed it and improved it in ways that are just too numerous to enumerate tonight. But tonight we want to thank you, congratulate you, and wish you all the best. Will you join me?
Thank you. I have a comment that I want to make later on during my superintendent's report that I have something written down because in my business, when you know you're going to speak, prepare something. We all speak off the cuff and so often, but the gist of all of this is that we made a lot of changes, but it wasn't me, it was us. Anything that we found that I came to was already here. Been fortunate to be surrounded by not only, and I'll comment more on this later, but not only a great and caring staff, but a Board of Education who listened and supported the administration. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I get the privilege of turning over the remaining recognition to you, Dr. McDowell.
Thank you. Watertown Board of Education wishes to recognize the 2014 class valedictorian and salutatorian at Watertown High School. Kyle Brown, are you here tonight? Kyle. What a boutonniere. Congratulations and best of luck to your
Well
son.
done, Kyle. Congratulations.
Sarah Crew? Sarah? Congratulations, Sarah. Best of luck to you. When you think about the, not only the dedication and the commitment, never mind the natural ability, because we choose, and I have that moment tonight. I said to the board chair last week when I saw this recognition, is this really necessary? And then on the other hand, I'll say we have to. When the sun shines brightly on our kids, nothing feels better than that. I mean, nothing. We talk about a valedictorian, salutatorian, or any kind of an honor like that. Kids don't get there by themselves. It comes from parents, grandparents, family, tradition, a lot of love, commitment. Never mind the genes and the ability that that the Almighty passed on. But you have to want to excel. And that takes sacrifice, because everybody could be doing something else instead of another project or another AP course or just something else. So, Kyle and Sarah, I just want you to know how proud we are of you and all of the graduates. But certainly, the farther along you go, and I will promise you this, the farther along you go, the more your dedication and commitment to excellence will separate you from others. I promise you that. So congratulations. The Watertown Board of Education wishes to recognize Megan Perrin, a senior at Watertown High School, for her athletic accomplishments. Megan won her 4th consecutive Naugatuck Valley League title in the women's javelin throw this May, and also won her 3rd consecutive CIAC Class MM Women's Javelin Throw State Championship earlier this month. In addition, Megan won the CIAC State Open Championship in the women's javelin throw this month, and won the Council of New England Secondary School Principals Association Championship in the women's javelin throw on Saturday, June 14th. Megan, are you here? I'm going to ask Dr. Carnamola to talk a little bit about the next presentation.
Good evening. I'm happy to see that we have a number of people who have come this evening for this dedication. We want to recognize Ms. Mary Jane Miller, who most of you know as one of our teachers here, was a teacher of French here at the high school. She joined Watertown Public Schools in 1999. She moved here to the high school in September of 2001. In addition to performing as the World Language Coordinator and teaching all levels of French, and I have to say that because right through French 5, she taught very diligently, right up to AP French and so on, sometimes in mixed classrooms, just to make sure that students were able to take all levels of French, even if we didn't have enough room for additional sections. She would take varying levels of French within the same classroom. So in addition to being our World Language Coordinator and teaching all levels of French, Ms. Miller planned and chaperoned at least 8 that I know of, and I'm pretty sure there are more than that, international trips for students. On April 17, 2013, Mary Jane passed away while doing what she loved, showing the local culture and sights of Europe to a group of high school students. Tonight, we are officially dedicating the World Language Wing to the memory of Mary Jane Miller. And I would like to take a moment to thank the generous donations that so many people gave to make this possible. I would like to thank our World Language Department, all of whom are here this evening, who went out and solicited those donations and worked hard to bring in the money to pay for the lettering and the plaque that we put up in memory of Mary Jane, and also our students, many of whom are here this evening, who ran fundraisers and chaired committees, even as students, to bring in the fundraising attempts so that we were able to do this in her memory. I appreciate that all of you played a role in this, the support from the Board of Ed in allowing us to dedicate the wing to Mary Jane, and I'm so pleased that this evening we're able to show all of you that forever in our building we will have the World Language Wing dedicated to Mary Jane. And I think at this time we're going to.
That's right, Dr. Carnamola. I'd like to, if there's no objection from the board, I'd like to call a brief recess, a 10-minute recess. We'll reconvene at 7:50 p.m. to allow everyone a chance to walk down and take a look at the area that's been dedicated to Madame Miller's memory and have a time of fellowship down there as well. So we will reconvene at 7:50.
Oh, hold on. They weren't expecting us this early. It won't be ready until 8. Okay,
Oh, is that right?
there's some setup going on downstairs. So, pardon me.
Okay, well, you can sit through the riveting part of committee reports, approving the minutes, and we'll break in a little while, okay? Thank you, Dr. Carnamola. We'll move on to item E, a budget summary. Board members, in your packets, this past Friday, you received from Mr. Peruse a year-to-date accounting of expenses and projected expenditures through year-end, including encumbered amounts. Do board members have any questions at this time? If not, we'll move on to item F, our first round of public participation. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? Yes, please.
My name is Julia Culbertson, 1051 Amity Road in Bethany, and I'd like to speak on behalf of Mary Jane Miller and the memorial.
Thank you, Julia.
I'm a Spanish teacher at Watertown High School, and Mary Jane Miller was a close colleague of mine, my mentor teacher for 2 years, and my department coordinator for 5. Madame Miller was a very passionate teacher who created engaging lessons that kept French and Spanish students coming back year after year. She always sought to help others, including her students and younger teachers like me, and through community service and involvement. She never masked her emotions, and her passion for French and compassion for students often drove her to tears. Madame loved to travel and led yearly trips to Europe over April vacations, and these trips opened up the world to over 300 Watertown students who traveled with her, some of whom are with us today. I nominated her to be the Watertown Teacher of the Year a few years ago, since she truly embodied excellence, commitment to the students in Watertown, and a constant drive to collaborate and improve her teaching. Tonight we remember her dedication to her students and her love of teaching. I'm speaking tonight as a member of a very special department at Watertown High School. The world language teachers are close-knit like family. We know many of our students well. In no other class do students share their family trees, vacation activities, pastimes, plans for next year, tastes in food, fashion, and sports, perform skits, reflect on their identities and their places in the world. Mary Jane Miller knew and loved each teacher in our department and each student she taught. As I serve as a mentor to our current French teacher, I hope to impart some of the wisdom and passion that Mary Jane taught me in my beginning years. Her influence on my career and on those of my colleagues will last. After her passing, the World Language Honor Society was given the task of planning a tribute to Mary Jane on behalf of the school and the Watertown community. The students came up with the idea to dedicate the World Language wing of classrooms in her memory, and the Board of Education approved our proposal a year ago. I would officially like to thank the board and Dr. Carnamola for their support. Also, as the advisor of the World Language Honor Society, I want to recognize this year's officers for their excellent work and dedication to this project. Our President, Shannon Flom, Vice President, Alexa Guerrera, Publicist, Alexis Kaiser, and Secretary Paula Atala spent hours planning fundraisers and executed them with talent and heart. My entire department is grateful. Girls, can you stand up? Finally, thank you to all the teachers and staff of the Watertown School District and friends and family of Mary Jane Miller who donated nearly $6,000 towards the memorial over the past year. Your generosity has made this idea a reality, which we are celebrating tonight. Because of the support of the board, our students, and the community, language students will see the memorial each time they descend to Spanish or French class, and my department will smile entering work each day, remembering Mary Jane Miller, an outstanding teacher and true friend. Thank you.
Julia, thank you very, very much, and I hope you'll never forget, and especially the students who came back tonight, will never forget that as much as Madame Miller meant to you, as important as she was to you, as much joy as she gave you, please never forget, when I hear the kind of words that Julia shared with us tonight, and the spirit in which she said them, please remember how much joy that you put in Madame Miller's heart, and how much happiness you brought her during her 14 years here in Watertown. It was a mutual bond that was a blessing to her as much as it was to all of us as well. Does anyone else wish to address the board this evening? Does anyone else wish to address the board this evening? Did I see a hand? Yes, Joanne.
Good evening. I'm Joanne Chenkes at 1080 Middlebury Road in Watertown. I have 2 notes that I'd like to share with you from students, former students of Mary Jane Miller. The world of Facebook has given me this opportunity to share them with you. The first is a note from Tom Wormer, who is currently in Washington, D.C., and wishes that he could be much closer to be here himself. He is studying at American University and working there for the summer. My amazing experience at Watertown High was molded by first-class teachers, administrators, and faculty who inspired me to learn, challenged me to reach my potential, provided opportunities to expand my perspective, guided me through adversity, led by example, and instilled in me the confidence to be true to myself. Of all the amazing mentors I had, Madame stands out from the crowd. Madame never confined her classes to world languages. She taught lessons on the world. She inspired us to learn how to speak a new language by opening our minds to the amazing places where the language is spoken. She worked endlessly to give us the opportunity to see the world for ourselves. With Madame, I have traveled to Spain, Portugal, France, and Monaco. On these trips, the lessons came to life, and the people that went with me are now my closest friends. Although I have no plans to use my skill professionally, next year I will graduate with a minor in Spanish language and Latin American studies because Madame taught me that the opportunity to learn is the greatest luxury we have, and studying the world is good for the mind, the heart, and the soul. I believe there's no greater honor to bestow on a world language wing than the legacy of Mary Jane Miller. Madame will always be remembered for her bright, vibrant style, silly sayings, and her ability to laugh at herself. She encouraged everyone to be who they are and to appreciate and enjoy every moment of every day. These are the 2 most important lessons any high school student can learn. Muchas gracias. Merci, Madame. Rest in peace. And the second is from Amy Chevalier from the class of 2007, who is currently a chemical engineer in Philadelphia, graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. I wish I could be here tonight to honor Madame. She was a special woman who touched the lives of many. I have so many fond memories of her from our trips to France, dining at that crazy Greek restaurant in the Latin Quarter of France, relaxing at cafes, touring castles in the Loire Valley, walking along the Mediterranean in Nice. The list could go on and on. She was equally as fun in the classroom. I remember coming to class one morning, and class was during the first block of the days, and the doors were locked. They were usually open for us early to walk in, but on that day, there was paper blocking the window on the door. Once the bell rang, she let us inside, and we were in awe. She had converted our classroom into a cave. We were studying every early French civilization, and she wanted us to experience it firsthand. We spent the class doing cave drawings and discussing our lives as cavemen. I was lucky to have so much time with her during my 4 years at the high school, both in and out of the classroom. She made learning fun, and her passion for French rubbed off on me. I can't imagine French class at the high school without Madame, and it only seems appropriate that the World Language Department is being named in her honor. And those are only 2. So many more individuals contacted me and saying that they wish that they could be here. But one thing I do want to say is that Madame lived her life to the fullest, And in those days when we were together, she always thought of those students, keeping together in fours, always looking out for each other, knowing that they would make it home, and that they would always remember how grown up they had to be and how mature they had become in such a short time. And it is a lifelong lesson they'll carry with them forever in their hearts. So thank you so much for this dedication on her behalf.
Thank you, Joanne. Does anyone else wish to address the board this evening? Does anyone else wish to address the board this evening? If not, we'll close our first round of public participation and move to item G, committee reports. The first would be from curriculum and instruction. Any report this evening, Mr. Nardella?
Mr. Chairman, there's no report tonight from curriculum and instruction.
Thank you. Mr. Berthel, any report from policy and labor this evening?
No report.
And Mr. Berthel, any report from budget and finance?
No report tonight.
Mr. Lambert, any report from facilities PBC operations?
No report this time,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Nardella, back to you. Any report from governance and community engagement?
No report this time, Mr. Chairman.
Stay with you then. Any communications to report this evening, Mr. Secretary?
There are no communications to report tonight, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Nardella. We'll move on to item I, approval of minutes. The first would be from the regular Board of Education meeting of June 9th, 2014. Do board members have any corrections to these minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes of June 9th, 2014, regular Board of Education meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve of the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of June 9th, 2014 as submitted.
Thanks for the motion, Mr. Berthel. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for the second, Mr. Lambert. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Abstention.
3 abstentions? Raise your hand on the abstentions, please.
Abstention.
And the motion passes. We'll move on to item 2, approval of the minutes of the special Watertown Board of Education meeting, also of June 9th, 2014. Do board members have any corrections to these minutes?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
item 3 on that agenda, I believe we are missing the narrative as to who presented and seconded the motion.
Take a look at your document. Dr. McDowell, I'm going to refer these minutes to you. We have not made a motion to approve these, so there's no motion to withdraw. I'd like to ask that these minutes be corrected and resubmitted to the board.
They will be, thank you, sir.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item J, the superintendent's recommendations and report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This evening, there are several appointments for information and also some resignations. Know that we are in the process of posting and will be busy over the summer, certainly, replacing these many positions. I talked a little bit before about comment that I wanted to make, that I wanted to take a few moments to thank board members past and present for their support over the past year. And as I've already said, more than anything, a superintendent needs the support of the board, and I've certainly benefited. Together, we've been able to address many issues and make corrections. A few things stand out in particular. We have a new policy manual that is up to date with all current legislation. Our board meetings are now streamed so that viewers may watch the entire meeting. We negotiated a new transportation contract that resulted in a significant decrease in cost. There are lots of things, but right now, these are the ones that stand out. Board members and others have heard me say repeatedly that I have been most fortunate during my time in Watertown to have been surrounded by a dedicated and caring staff. We have dedicated principals, teachers, secretaries, custodians, maintenance workers, and paraprofessionals in our buildings. We have great students and parents. The Munson House staff is frankly the best group I have ever had the pleasure with whom to work. We indeed have more than our share of excellence. Also, not only I want to comment on building principals and assistant principals, but two extremely dedicated directors in our curriculum person, Janet Parlato, and in Donna Rochester, our Director of Student Services. So I know that I leave you in a far better place than we were when I came to Watertown in August of 2013. And while that feels really good, I can't take but a bit of the credit because it was already here. We just needed to recognize people, talk to them, convey our expectations, treat them as we all wish to be treated, ask how they're doing with sincerity, respect them, and then hold them accountable. It's a pretty basic recipe for success, and I have found that it always works. My point is that none of anything we got right was because of me. It was because of us. I want to thank the board and everyone associated with the Watertown Public Schools. I've really enjoyed my time here.
There's an indispensable ingredient to that, though, Dr. McDowell, and that's leadership. And that's what you brought. And that's what you brought out in the district, and that's why we are so much improved district than we were a year ago. So thank you, again for all your efforts. We'll move on to item K, the report from the chairman. Today marks the final day of classes for the 2013-2014 school year, and that leads me to two questions. One is, where did the year go? And the second question is, just how could we run our schools without the phenomenal staff we have here in Watertown that Dr. McDowell just referred to? Our children, our parents, our community, and especially this Board of Education are blessed by the hundreds of district employees who dedicate themselves to the care and the development of the children of our town. Saying thank you just doesn't seem to be sufficient. But I hope that it conveys just how much this board values and never takes for granted all that our teachers, our principals, our paraprofessionals, our custodians, our maintenance staff, our cafeteria workers, our counselors, our psychologists, our secretaries, nurses, and administrators do every day to prepare our children to have a successful, to have a productive life. You are all indispensable to the lives of Watertown's children, and we can never thank you enough, not just for your service, but for the love you show our children every day. And while for many of us involved in public education, summer can provide a brief time for relaxation, tonight's agenda reminds us of just how busy summer is for many of our staff members and how important summer is to many of our town's children in need of academic reinforcement and support. So on behalf of the entire board, I want to thank the teachers, psychologists, speech pathologists, paraprofessionals, everyone I just mentioned, who make our summer education programs the success that they are. Again, thank you all. I wish you a wonderful summer and look forward to coming together again this fall for another year of making all the difference in the world for the children of Watertown. That concludes our report. It's about a minute before 8 o'clock. If there is no objection from the board, I'll call now for a 10-minute recess. We'll reconvene at approximately 8:10 p.m. after we've had a chance to go out and have a time of fellowship and really have a chance to appreciate the great work that those very generous contributions have led to create a memorial for Madame Miller. We stand in recess. L, action items, adoption of items to be approved by consent. Item 1, consideration of the approval of the Safe School Climate Plans for 5 schools as submitted by building principals. Is there a motion on the first Safe School Climate Plan?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve of the John Trumbull Primary School Safe School Climate Plan.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Berthel. Is there a second?
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the second, Mr. Nardella. As we move into discussion, board members have the individual safe school climate plans to review. You received them in your packets last Friday. They are plans submitted to comply with Board Policy 5015, Bullying Prevention and intervention, which requires the board to approve and submit these individual schools' safety climate plans to the Department of Education, as well as to share these with parents as well. Dr. McDowell, any other comment, information you'd like to share about these as we enter discussion?
No, just that the template was provided in our model policies under the Regulation 5105, and we're pleased to bring these forward to the Board of Education.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. Any further discussion on the first action item? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. We'll move on to item B. Can I ask for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve of the Judson Elementary School Safe School Climate Plan.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Berthel. Is there a second? Thank you for the second, Mr. Nardella. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Is there a motion on item C?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve of the Polk Elementary School Safe School Climate Plan.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Berthel. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you for the second, Mr. Nardella. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. And is there a motion on item D?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve of the Swift Middle School Safe School Climate Plan.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Berthel. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you for the second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? The motion passes. We'll move on to item E. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve of the Watertown High School Safe School Climate Plan.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Berthel. Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you for the second, Mr. Nardella. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes. We'll move on to item 2, consideration to approve the proposed student activity fees for Swift Middle School and Watertown High School as proposed by the administration. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the proposed student activity fees for Swift Middle School and Watertown High School as proposed by the administration.
Thank you for the motion, Ms. Wilk. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for the second, Mr. Berthel. As we begin discussion, board members, you received information in your packets last Friday relative to these student activity fees. The fees are identical to what Dr. McDowell proposed in his presentation at our last Board of Education meeting. A flat fee of $50 per student for all club activities with a family cap of $100. A fee of $125 per student per sport with a family cap of $250. The reimplementation of class dues at Watertown High School at $25 per year, with all of these fees subject to waiver for students qualifying for free and reduced lunch students. The cost of ice time will be taken over entirely by the Hockey Booster Club for the Watertown High School Hockey Club. Monies not raised through fundraisers for the cost of ice time will become the responsibility of parents. Hockey players will pay a fee of $125 per student, consistent with the per student per sport fee. With that, is there discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm abstaining.
One abstention? And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. That will move on to item M, future agenda items and board members' comments. Do board members have any comments they'd like to make at this time? Yes, Mr. Lambert.
Thank you, Zano. Regarding the recognition of Dr. McDowell, Dr. McDowell came into our district as an interim superintendent. Generally, they hold our hand, they keep us well, keep us from hurting ourselves and onward. Dr. McDowell did not hold our hand. He led us in a direction by example. He looked at us from the outside in and addressed our deficiencies, and also he patted our backs for our achievements. He was kind of an all-around guy that I consider an Iron Man of interim superintendents. I enjoyed his tenure here. I enjoyed his honesty. Sometimes you didn't want someone to be that honest, but he was. was good in, it was good in some points, and some points you deserved honesty. So I really admired his drive. Not only his drive from Massachusetts every day, but his drive when he got here. He didn't quit. He's not a quitter. But most of all, I think about Tim McDowell, I think about his integrity as interim superintendent, and I think the district I am much better off, and I know the district is, by knowing Dr. McDowell, and I thank you very much for your service.
Thanks, Tom.
Well said, Mr. Lambert. Do other board members have comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Yes, Leslie.
I'd also like to address Dr. McDowell and his tenure with Watertown School District. You know, as a new member of the Board of Ed last November, I couldn't have asked for a better superintendent of the district. You were always available, no matter how simple the question or content or how difficult. There wasn't a time where a phone call wasn't answered or returned, or an email wasn't answered or returned. I never anticipated to learn so much so quickly from the superintendent of schools. Our schools are better for having you here, and I'm better for having known you. One thing that stands out, in addition to the words of both our chairman and Mr. Lambert, that hasn't been mentioned yet, is that you shine the light on other people. And there's very few people in my life who I've noticed do that as well as you do. You care about the person in front of you. You very rarely shine the light anywhere but on others, and I thank you for that. I thank you on behalf of all of the teachers and administrators, the people that you work with at the Munson House, and as a board member. You took some very insurmountable tasks, and with a first-class attitude, you accomplished them all. And I am very grateful that we've had you for this long, so thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie, do other board members have comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman, through you. Yeah, Tim, I certainly echo the sentiments of Tom and of Leslie. And, you know, I talk a lot about you to my colleagues, and you know, I'm studying for my doctorate in education, as you know, and I definitely look to you as a role model, someone who's very wise. I see a lot of wisdom in you, and I really take that to heart, and I thank you for that. It was I'm serious, though. I really see you. No, I don't think it's because you're old. You're not old. I'm old. I really do. I see a lot of wisdom in you, and I want to be like you when I eventually become a professional educator. So thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you. When I grow up. When I turn 25.
Thank you.
Do other board members have comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman? Dr. McDowell, I too wish to express my sincere appreciation for your service to the town of Watertown, to the board, our administrators, teachers, staff, but most importantly to our children. When some members of this board had the opportunity to meet you just about a year ago, I believe, maybe 11 months ago, I recall a few key points of your interview that really resonated with me. First, you took notice of a small issue with the grounds in front of the school we interviewed you in, and you suggested to us that we correct the issue, and that was before the interview even began. Second, we explained what our needs were. Tom remembers what I'm talking about as he's laughing over there. Second, we explained what our needs were in an interim superintendent, and you told us in no uncertain terms what you would do and how you would do it. You made the point, as Guy mentioned earlier, of telling us that you would not be an interim superintendent, but a superintendent for the interim. And perhaps it was a subtle play on words to some, but to me it was a clear indicator of how seriously you would and did take this assignment. And third, you poignantly told us that it was absolutely okay if we did not hire you, because you had a barn to paint and a list of chores waiting for you from your wife. I really liked your answers back then, and after working with you for the last 10 months, they mean so much more to me today. You have provided solid leadership, making some very difficult decisions, while at the same time improving the overall function of this school system. I'm not sure we could have asked of much more than that from an interim superintendent or a superintendent for the interim, but you certainly have provided more. I have personally enjoyed the many conversations we've had, most related to the school system, some to our mutual love for music and cars. But more importantly, you have always put the well-being of our children and doing what's right for our children ahead of everything else. And for that, Dr. McDowell, I sincerely thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chairman.
Mr. Bethel. Do other board members have comments at this time? Okay. If not, we'll move on to item N, our second round of public participation. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board this evening? Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board this evening? If not, we'll close our second round of public participation and ask for a motion to move into executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing the performance and evaluation of the executive secretary of the superintendent of schools, and for interviewing and discussing an applicant for the position of assistant principal of Watertown High School. Attending the executive session will be board members Don Orsini, James Gambardella, Josephine Cavallo-Rosa, Tom Lambert, Guy Bizzano, Eric Berthel, Ray Nardella, Janelle Wilk, and myself, Leslie Crotty. Superintendent Dr. Thomas McDowell, Watertown High School Principal Dr. Bridget Cardamola, and the candidate for the position of Assistant Principal.
Thank you for the motion, Ms. Karate. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you for the second, Mr. Berthel. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes, and at 8:29 p.m., we're now in executive session. I'll ask those who were not named in the motion to excuse themselves at this time. Thank you. Possible action regarding the appointment of an assistant principal at Watertown High School. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move that the board approve the appointment of Mr. Thomas Hogreef to the position of Assistant Principal of Watertown High School, effective July 1st, 2014, on Step 1
We haven't approved, wait a minute, it's
of the
just...
current WAA contract at a salary of $102,701.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Lambert. Is there a second?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
Thank you very much, Josephine. Is there any discussion? Board members, when we review candidate applications, we typically have little to go on except paper, resumes, and references, and so forth, and the reflection of a candidate in an interview setting, not all of which is the most reliable indicator of someone's future performance. There's no replacement for actual experience that you observe on the job. Through the worst of circumstances, Tom had that opportunity this year to move into an assistant principal position where the entire district could have the pleasure of watching him at work, watching him excel, watching him interact with such grace and skill with students, staff members who were colleagues just a moment ago. Now suddenly folks he was observing and providing feedback to and who would likely become his colleagues again. That must have been sometimes a delicate thing to manage. And to do all that work, and it has been nothing but validation of your readiness for this opportunity. So it is a joy to include you as in the fourth Watertown staff member who has been selected for possible promotion within the district in just this school year alone. It says so much about you. It says so much about the ranks from which you join this new level of employment with the Watertown school system. So I look forward to voting yes on this motion shortly. Do other board members have any items to discuss relative to this motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Now you can clap. Folks here, I don't know if
It's got a late, he had a steam this afternoon, you know.
Okay, pace yourself.
Congratulations.
Very much, Tom.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to item Q, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you
Second
for
it,
the
Mr.
motion,
Chairman.
Mr. Berthel. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for the second, Mr. Nardella. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned at 9:27 p.m.